Hey everybody, welcome back to Smarketing CONNECT's podcast. I'm here today with one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite people, I should say, because I love talking to her, Susan Rooks. I won't go too super details into her bio. I definitely will let her do that herself. So Susan, if you don't mind, we'll jump right in and we'll ask you in a few sentences to tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really enjoying it. We've had a good conversation. I'm the Grammar Goddess, as you well know. My company's Grammar Goddess Communication. And what I do now is not what I started out doing, which was corporate training, but I'm doing a lot more in the last 10 years of editing, copy editing, and proofreading if that's what somebody needs. I find that working with the authors I've worked with, the business authors, gives me an opportunity to help them shine, which seems to make them really happy, makes me extremely happy, and I learn each time. So for me, this has been a transition over the last, I think, 10 or 11 years now of working on books or blogs or resumes, pretty much anything in print. If you put it in front of me, I will read it. And sad to say, I'll almost always find something to make a note about, only because this is what I have learned to do. I call myself an accidental editor, and I'm serious with that. It's not the imposter syndrome exactly. I'm comfortable now. But honestly, I didn't grow up saying I'm going to be an editor or anything remotely like that. So this to me has been a gradual evolution of, well, I can do this. I can speak in front of a group and teach them American grammar. Now there's a topic for you. Or business writing or interpersonal skills. And I still do some of that. But the current way of teaching is a little different for me. So I'm grateful. I love working with the authors, no matter what it is they write, non-fiction. I much prefer that. Business-oriented, factual. It seems to be a better fit for me and my skills. But it's a lot of fun, and I get to know people in a way that I might not have before. And I get to help them, which for me is the bottom line for everything.
That's awesome. So, so then if that be the case, so tell us about the types of companies or people that you tend to work with more often.
Well, again, with the training, I worked with larger companies because they would have a sales staff or an admin staff, that kind of thing. So they were usually the larger ones, several hundred people or more. Right now, that's not my normal working people because I'm working with individuals, mostly authors, bloggers. It rarely is a company that says, will you look at my website? Now, if one did, that's fine, but it's not the norm as I've experienced it in the last few years.
That's interesting. It's usually it's a much more one-on-one engagement at this
Very
point
much.
versus a bigger company or
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a quick answer. So you're going to give us more time at the end.
Hey,
So this one, I think you'll take up the time on this one if I know you, if I remember you at all. So a must-have business tool. All of us have our favorites. We all know, like, whether it's CRM or certain, social media pieces or whatever software packages, abundance. So in your opinion, what do you think a must-have business tool is for small companies?
well, there are two of them. And again, it's almost the imposter syndrome because I'm laughing as I say this. I teach LinkedIn basics. Why? Because I was on LinkedIn probably in 05. I'm pretty sure October of 05. LinkedIn thinks I was. I must have been. I signed up because someone said you should be on LinkedIn. And I thought, okay, sure, why not? And I did nothing for 10 years. I don't think I had 50 connections. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't even know who to ask because it was a newer tool back 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And about in 2012 or 13, John White brought me into a small LinkedIn group and said, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do this because what you're talking about, nobody else is talking about. Nobody else talks about grammar, American grammar. Be grateful. It's not the most exciting topic. But he brought me in and he helped me see the value long before it exploded in the last 3 or 4 years. And so I built a very nice following on LinkedIn, being the only person talking about my topic. And I look today and I'm heartbroken, Tom. I'm deadly serious here because when I teach it, my groups have been people who say they don't know what to do. They don't fill out everything. They
Yeah.
say, well, who's going to want to see me? And I have to say to them, the way you've set it up, nobody. Because there is something like 645 million profiles on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess, based on my own non-scientific research, that maybe a third of them are highly active.
Yeah.
Now, I know some people say, well, I've already got a job. I don't need LinkedIn. Uh-huh. You're going to keep the job forever the way your daddy did or your granddaddy did? Probably not.
Right.
I forget the guy that said this. Somebody will probably know. Harvey McKay, dig your well before you're thirsty. My thought is do LinkedIn. If you've got another site that works for you well, great. But LinkedIn still is a great business site. And the stronger your participation in it, the more you're seen creating a brand. I don't believe I just said brand either. A brand that shouts, I am worth knowing, I'm worth seeing, I'm worth talking to, I'm worth hiring. Do it while it maybe doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
It has worked for me. I've got 11,000 connections, which is a small number, by the way, in terms of John White, who brought me in, who's got over 50,000. That's big. And it works for me. Tom, the last 5 years, 99% of my clients have come from LinkedIn.
Wow, that's a very big number.
It's
So
for me, that's a huge tool.
Yeah, so definitely LinkedIn, and I've mentioned it to a few people too. Not quite in that much detail, but I don't think I could agree more, especially in the environment we're in right now with the current situation. So, and we'll move on to the next question based on that. So I'm gonna change this question on you a little bit, because we ask a lot of our experts about what kind of challenges small businesses bring in. We've discovered a little bit earlier in this that you don't really work really with businesses in their natural setting, more the owners or authors or something like that. So
Yeah.
So I'll spin this just a tad and say, what types of problems are they really asking you to solve for them versus just something that comes natural to you? As I know the grammar does, but is there anything else that you would like to add to that?
Not really. Normally, it's just how effective is their written communication. And it's not all grammar. It is somewhat emotional intelligence. There's other factors that come into it. But I don't work with that many small business owners. I would, but I just have not done that.
Yeah. Well, again, and like I said, I knew that was a little bit of a twist for you because,
Yep.
knowing who you work with, but I thought it would be worth it to ask. And that writing intelligence or the emotional intelligence built into writing, I think, is a good key too for people watching this to understand that is a component of it, not strictly grammar. And when it comes to periods, commas, colon
It's the
versus
language we
semicolon.
choose, Tom. It's
Right.
the language we choose. And there's always a choice to be made, depending on the person who's going to read it or the person who's going to understand it. So I work with a wider variety than just grammar. It's a whole big thing of, will this work for the intended audience?
Perfect. That's perfect. So we'll leave it on that note. So I guess this is another interesting question for me about, so, you meet with and talk with a lot of people, and I'm assuming some people are going to ask you for advice on whether or not they're looking for sales help or marketing help. And do you know somebody, or what kind of advice do you give business owners that are looking to bring in an outside consultant when they ask you your advice? What type of advice do you give them when it comes to this type of question?
Well, since I don't consider myself a marketer, not even an accidental one, thank you, I very often point them in the direction of John White, and I mentioned him about a few minutes ago. John White, MBA, he owns I'm going to get this right, Social Marketing Solutions. He is remarkably good at leveraging social media for any kind of a company that may be thinking to themselves, I'm supposed to do it, but I don't know how to do it. I don't even know where to start. And for me, I grew up in the 50s where it was all newspapers and encyclopedias, and this whole world wasn't imagined, except in Buck Rogers, maybe. And people like John understand it in a way that I will never quite get it. But he understands how to take what you do and where to position you, whether you should be on something like Instagram or Pinterest or on Twitter or on Facebook, probably not, but maybe, or LinkedIn, or any of the others. He can get people into magazines like Entrepreneur or Huffington Post. All of that kind of thing comes into the marketing. I know how he does it, but I just turn them over to him and say, John, go do. I think it's smart when you know your limits. I know where I'm good and I know where I'm grasping at straws. So for that kind of thing, I will find a website designer for people if they need that. I mean, I've got a very strong network of business professionals who take care of all the things that I can't do.
Okay. I usually like to pry a little bit on this question because I mean all of us have been in the situation to hire somebody. Most, I shouldn't say all of us, but most of us have been in a situation to either hire somebody or bring in a partner to build a bigger project or something like that. And I like asking, like, so what kind of thing are you looking for in that partner? What makes them worthy enough to you to bring them into work with one of your current clients?
Yep, that's fair. Those are good questions.
So, all right, so we'll go. All right, my probably favorite question here, because I think sometimes we take ourselves a little too serious on these podcasts, and we try to like really focus in on the questions, and I like to have a little fun, and it also humanizes us a little better, a little bit, I should say, not a little better. I think we all know we're human, but anyway. So Susan, if you could be a superhero, who would you be and why?
As again, I grew up in the 50s where every television show was male dominated. So little girls like me didn't have a whole lot of people there that looked like us in terms of superheroes. We were always the second or third or fourth person, and I don't have a female one. I wanted to be the Lone Ranger more than I can tell you. I love horses. I still to this day love riding. He would bound into town. Who's that masked man anyway? But he'd come in, and here's what I loved: settle everything, and then ride off into the sunset, and everybody would go. And I just thought that was the coolest thing to do, because as a youngster, I wasn't all that comfortable figuring out how to make good relationships. I was not a very popular kid. I was bossy, very bossy. I would take my toys and go home. So the thought of being able to ride in, be a hero, and ride out again was so attractive that I laugh when I think about it, but it's honestly true. I just didn't have any female role models of the day. And the Lone Ranger, I'm still pretty much, when somebody says, do you like to go out in groups? And no, I'm very happy being the Lone Ranger, which
So
probably nobody would expect.
I'll add one piece of that for you, and one of the reasons that I actually can sort of I feel for you with this, because one of the things that I think made him so cool is that you view him as a superhero, but he had no superpowers. Right? He was just a guy. He was just a guy good at doing what he was doing, and good at managing people and manipulating situations to the benefit of the greater good and all that stuff, right? But he had no superpowers like blowing, laser beams out of the eyes. And
not then, no.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that you picked the Lone Ranger, but I think it's a very cool pick because of the fact that he was able to accomplish all that with no superpowers.
Yeah, just knowing how to solve the problems that they were put in front of him. Which is about as much as I can do too. I cannot really do anything beyond that.
Very cool. So at the risk of sounding like I think I know who you're going to point out on this question, but I you might have given us a clue once or twice throughout this podcast, but we like to give our guests an opportunity to kind of pay it forward a little bit. Tell us a little bit about somebody that you really like working with, that you think would be a good guest on the podcast, and I'm going to reach out to them after this and see if they'll be willing. But more importantly, yeah, of course, yeah, you can give two.
Okay.
But I'll give you the 2 minutes and just give us a little bit of information about the people that you think would be good.
All right. Well, John White would be. There's no question. He's funny. He's hysterically funny. He lives in Colorado, but he's also very smart in his world, and I think that that's a huge piece. The other person I really did want to mention would be Beth Soboloff, who's a friend of mine, lives locally here. She's a website designer. And a lot of people say, oh, of course I need a website, but they don't know how to talk to me. I have a client in Florida who's a tree guy. It's relevant, I promise you. He's wonderful. He's my age, and he loves the fact that I and Beth work with him in the way he needs us to. And that's the important piece. Yeah. There are a lot of web designers in the world who can do a very good physical job. She takes it to the next level, and she remembers he needs a handheld occasionally. He needs a phone call occasionally. She emails him and lets him know what she's doing, when she's doing it, how it's affecting him. He's gone from being an ordinary guy to the first page of Google, if you know the right words to use, the first page. And he was #1 the other day.
Wow.
And so she understands SEO, but even better, she understands humans. Because again, he needs that level of security because he doesn't know what we're doing. He's trusting me and he's trusting Beth.
Right.
And I honestly love that I see her without me saying to her, he needs his handheld. She just went and did the things that she knows how to do. So if somebody's looking for a website for somebody who can do the technical stuff, and I cannot do that, and the other part of it, which is to walk you through it and find out what you want, not what she thinks you need, she'd be a terrific. Birchwood Enterprises is her company. She's on LinkedIn. She can be found under Birchwood Enterprises or Beth Soboloff. And if somebody really wants to talk to me, I'll be happy to connect them.
Beautiful. That's a great segue into your contact information. So if you are looking to contact Susan for one reason or another, whether it's to reach out to Jay or to Beth or even engage
No, that's
Susan.
fine. There's an extra period at the end of .com in my email, but that's okay.
I'm glad you pointed that out. See,
yeah,
she's good at what she does.
it's just what I can't help it.
So this is Susan's contact information minus the extra period at the end of the email. But Susan, aside from what's on the screen right now, are there any other ways that somebody would get a hold of you? Or because I took this straight
that's
from
my
your
cell
website.
phone. They can text me.
Okay.
I don't get email on my phone. So texting works always. If somebody really needs me for some reason, usually we don't have too much trouble with authors, but you never know. They need me. That's my number. It's my company number and it's my cell phone. And
Perfect.
the email works just as well, but I don't get that on the phone.
Perfect. And lastly, I will say, out of all this, if you remember nothing else, you can find Susan on smarketingconnect.com. So
yes, absolutely.
Even if you can't remember out of this, or for some reason your web browser isn't allowing you to type that in, which I would find hard to believe, but if it is, you can always find Susan at smarketingconnect.com. Well, Susan, thank you so much. I thought this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed having you on our podcast, and I hope our viewers enjoy you too. But I'd like to say thanks and so long.
Thank you for asking. This has been a pleasure. Thanks, Tom.